So good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're dialing in from. Appreciate your time today. My name's Ian Naylor, and this is the webinar focused on using hyper-personalization in your outreach. That's whether that be email, LinkedIn, or any of the other platforms that you're using to reach out to people. We'll cover all of those off today and looking at how you can increase engagement in your outreach in those channels quite significantly. Typically, our clients see a doubling, a 2x of their engagement metric. That might be replies or clicks, whatever it is that's important to you, maybe meetings or attendance, etc. In your marketing endeavors. So let's just so we're recording this session, and so we'll be able to send this out to you. Any questions, fire them to us as we go. We'll cover them, the pertinent ones at the time, and then we'll have a time at the end of this session to do a full Q&A. So in terms of what we're going to be covering today, first of all, we're going to look at the fundamentals of why would we consider using personalized images in our outreach. Hopefully once we've ticked that box for you, we're looking at how you can do that so you've got some actionable content from today that you can go away and implement yourselves, and start to see the benefits of what we've discussed today. Obviously, the key when personalizing images is making it purposeful. So we're going to be looking at some examples of what sort of images you can use to create and personalize. Very simple to do and yet have a massive impact. We're going to cover off a couple of use cases around some of the major channels that our clients tend to use, email and LinkedIn for outreach. But Hyperize covers lots of other options, direct mail through personalized postcards, obviously website personalization we're going to cover off, but Twitter, LinkedIn, obviously Slack, all of these other kind of business communication tools. There's lots of ways that we can use Hyperize to increase the engagement in those channels. In terms of myself, very quick, brief introduction. My name's Ian Naylor. I'm one of the co-founders of Hyperize. And in terms of my background, I've been starting SaaS businesses, predominantly B2B, a couple of B2C businesses for the last 20 years. My first, let's say, eureka moment with image personalization goes all the way back to my first business, which I started in 1998. Back then, I started selling brand new built-to-order cars online, which was a pretty crazy endeavor at the time. If you think back 22, 23 years, probably the average thing sold online was a book or a CD from Amazon. So $20 or so, and we were selling $40, $50, $100, £1,000 cars. And what we did essentially is allow people to order their car, spec it up online on the website, and then we would place the order direct with the dealership, direct with the manufacturer, cutting out the dealership, typically saving the customer 20, 30% on the price of the vehicle. Now, one of the things that we did with that business, bearing in mind it was like 98, 99, is when somebody came onto our website and spec'd out the car they wanted, we would physically print off a pack and send it to them in the post. We did used to email them, but we found we got much better conversion when somebody received a pack in the post, with an envelope, which made it feel a bit more substantial, especially back then. But one of the things that we found was in this quote pack for the car they'd selected, the more images, showing the vehicle they're interested in, the better. Obviously, there's no surprise there. We're, visual creatures inherently. And so being able to visualize that was great in terms of conversions. But then we kind of stumbled upon this additional revenue strategy, which we all like, kind of from business owners, upsells where we can get more money out of the customer. And so we were offering things like warranties and extra insurance and all those other sorts of things. But one of the things that really kind of struck a chord was private number plate. So hey customer, you're buying this new car, your surname's Naylor, and so we're going to find the best private number plate, N8A or N4Y10R, for example, or whatever it may be, any kind of private plate that was available that kind of matched, their name, their surname, etc. And so we used to manually look up, what was the best plate, and we were getting thousands of pounds commission from selling these private plates. They're quite expensive, and the commission percentages were amazing. And so what we used to do is get the picture of the front on picture of the car, that they'd selected for their quote, and in where the space for the number plate would be, we would personalize it, put the number plate that we thought was the best one for them in the car, in the picture of the car on the front center of the quote pack. And guess what? We ended up selling more private plates than we did cars. It was one of the best decisions we made as a business in terms of, one, looking for expansion revenue, and two, being able to tell that story in such a compelling way, visualizing it, personalizing it very purposefully to that client. Now, back then, 22, 23 years ago, it was a very laborious manual process to do that. We literally had, a full-time person whose only job it was to do the lookup and then edit the picture and put it in the quote pack. And sometimes we would all jump in, when there's a lot of quotes at the end of the day, try and catch the post. And so it really did take a lot of effort to do that. And that learning, that lesson that I took then, those 20 odd years ago, has stuck with me. And through every business I've found that I've been involved with since then, I've looked at how we can leverage image personalization as a strategy. And the more that I've done it, the more I've kind of looked into it, the more I've kind of understood, why it works, how it works, and the kind of the science behind what's happening to make it work. And ultimately, those 20 odd years of learning is kind of accumulated in Hyperize being available, to effectively create that sort of strategy we just talked about, that can be done in set up in minutes and repeated, verbatim forever in seconds, and that really is the key of today. One, how you can leverage that for yourselves and kind of really to see some of the power of that. So I hope that gives you an idea of one, some of the kind of the background of where I've come from, and obviously hopefully how that can then kind of leverage yourselves in your own sort of outreach and your own sort of marketing and sales endeavors. So that's kind of what we're going to be covering today. And obviously the first of those was, why should we be using personalized images in our outreach? Now, there's the reason why we're kind of all here today. Why is it we want to potentially even think about using images? What is it we want to do? We're doing outreach, we're doing sales, we're doing marketing engagement, but we're probably noticing that our stats aren't either as good as kind of what we planned for, or getting worse over time. And there's a real simple explanation for that. The amount of people that are trying to reach your target is increasing. So a year ago, a month ago, that target was getting less messages than they're getting now, and that's just kind of, that issue is getting bigger and worse every day, and that phenomenon has been, for as long as records have been put in place, in terms of digital engagement and reach, being progressively getting worse, because we're being bombarded every day by more and more messages. And of course, we only still have the same amount of minutes and hours every day, to focus on these things. And so the thing that gets squeezed is our attention to these, and we're automatically kind of dialing out the amount of time we spend, on input in things that are kind of coming past us. And so we really do need to kind of grab people's attention, and kind of get a second bite of that engagement cherry. And so what we can do is, as we mentioned obviously already, is leverage image personalization. And the reason why we're doing that is that the human brain processes images significantly quicker than text, 60,000 times quicker than text. And I think if you kind of step back and think about that, it's no surprise. If you look at pretty much every marketing channel, it's inherently visual. Lots of, glossy magazines and ads and posters, commercials, inherently visual, trying to kind of grab our attention out of all the other things that we could be doing. And so when we know that, okay, we can use images to tell a story, then we can then, well, what is it? What's the image going to be? How can we make it purposeful? And so that's kind of really what we're going to be looking at today. But when we've got this image that is purposeful and is telling a story that is related to the call to action, so therefore making your prospect more informed when they reach your, or when they receive your reach out, they see the image, that starts the process of them understanding, what you're talking about. And then obviously kind of when we include personalization, that just opens a drawer that triggers the pattern interrupt. It just puts a brake on the brain. The image is being processed obviously so quickly that when there's something there that is so familiar to them, their name, their business name, their logo, maybe a screenshot of their website, all of these things are going to just trigger that pattern interrupt that's just going to put a brake on their brain, and they're just going to be more likely to then use that kind of increased mind share of your message to then kind of take that in and more likely to take that call to action. So they're absorbing way more of your content than they would do normally, because their brain's like, oh, I just need to investigate this. I need to pay more attention to what's going on here. And that personalization and that pattern interrupt are really this psychological behavior that's giving us a lot of value in terms of, driving that user engagement. And like I said before, our users are typically seeing a 2-3 time kind of uplift in their engagement statistics when they start to implement these strategies. So let's have a look at kind of how we can use that. And obviously with Hyperice, the way that our image manipulation works is that we can add these images into pretty much any channel that enables images to be used. And digital images are inherently portable. So, whether it's your outreach, your cold email, whether it's newsletters for existing customers or onboarding, being able to kind of prick their ears up to get them to pay more attention to your message is always really vital. And it doesn't just have to be email, as we touched upon before. It could be LinkedIn, but obviously other channels like chat bots and videos, direct mail, and your website. And all of these we're going to be touching upon today. And it's when we combine these factors of website personalization, so image personalization, and channels that can select all of these or can use and leverage all of these capabilities, then we end up with hyper personalization, where we get to multiple steps. So our first step might be an outreach via email, or it might be an outreach via LinkedIn. And then we give them some clickable call to action, and now they're on our landing page. And again, that's personalized as well. And it's these compounding steps that start to give us, significant uplift, where if we've got a 2x uplift on step 1, and then we get a 2x uplift on step 2, then those two compound, we've got a 4x uplift over our Hyperice personalized funnel. And so we're going to cover off again how you can implement that today. So on the first step of implementation, let's look at how to use personalized images. Let's look at some of the examples that our clients are using in their kind of day-to-day outreach that are having an amazing effect. Now, there are really two camps of customers from a Hyperice perspective. We have our kind of sales type of customers, our sales teams, our BDMs, ABM type teams, and then we have our marketing teams. But these set of images here are very much more utilized by the sales sort of team that are kind of reaching out to customers, and they're wanting to do some sort of one-to-one or one-to-few engagement. But it's very much them, the salesperson or ABM account manager, etc., that's front and center. The call to action is typically involving about them booking a meeting or connecting with them, getting together in some sort of participation, maybe one-to-one or in a small group or webinar like this. And so humanizing that connection, saying, hey, this is me, I'm Ian, pleased to meet you, Bruce, Paul, Steve, Bob, whatever. Personalizing that connection, but also humanizing it as well. And so bringing forward that kind of human connection that you would inevitably have, for better or worse, when you eventually meet. And so what we're doing there is, one, we're getting the value of the personalized image, which we know is going to trigger a pattern interrupt, which is going to give us more mind share, which is going to lead to more engagement and people taking a call to action. But then we're also leveraging this human trait of human-to-human interactivity, which also is going to give you a bit of a boost. And so there are lots of ways that we can add personalization in a meaningful way if we want to do it in sales outreach, where we've got this kind of one-to-one call to action. Like, for example, here, this is James from Staff Circle. One of the things that he does is he'll reach out to people on LinkedIn of his identified customer profile, and then he'll reach out to them when they change roles, when they're more likely to be interested in making more kind of impacts in their role, kind of lots of citizens as a new starter in their kind of, he's kind of targeting senior HR people. And so he's got this whiteboard next to him, physically exists when he recorded this picture, and he's just congratulating them on their new role. So you've got some personalization in there. You've got some kind of stroking their ego, making them feel good, creating that moment of delight. You've got the personalization. It's a GIF as well. So you've got the movement of the GIF drawing the eye in. and of course it's humanized as well. So it really is layering on all these psychological traits that are going to, create a little mind explosion for the person who receives that, and they're going to be much more open to taking the call to action. The same way here, we've got to get this one in the middle, where we're just kind of adding the personalization. It's kind of just floating layers, if you like, on top and at the bottom of the image. In this case, this image is just a stock image rather than this one here. James recorded that himself. And then we've got Justin here at the bottom, where he's using a physical laptop in his image and adding a website personalization screenshot. Again, this can be great for call to actions, where saying, hey, I checked out your site. I'd love to talk about some service that I provide around your website, or I've just checked out this blog page and I'd love to exchange some links, that sort of thing. This one here in the middle and the bottom, where we've got this kind of video frame on top of it. That's really great. If you want to send somebody a video, whether personalized or not, and you want to kind of draw their attention to it, say, hey, here's the recording of the event that we just did, or here's this kind of white paper video that I think you'd be kind of find really interesting, and then personalizing it to them, so they just feel a little bit more kind of engaged with the content. And again, we've got the human kind of connection there and the waving, to kind of create that kind of fear, kind of leveraging that law of reciprocity. Really kind of great ways to humanize as a part of an outreach and kind of show something that's kind of relevant, whether it's connection, celebration. This one here in the top right, an event, that you wanted to kind of show somebody. So you've got a dynamic, personalized ticket. Lots of different ways to kind of to do that. And what we see is, as I mentioned before, when it's beyond just a kind of an image that represents or reinforces your call to action, but it's humanized, you start to leverage other traits such as the law of reciprocity, which says that if you do something nice for somebody, they're going to feel compelled to respond. And so you there smiling and waving, it might look a little bit twee, but actually what it's doing is triggering. But here we can see, for example, Rebecca, which has really elevated her feel-good factor. This is a cold outreach. Let's be honest, nobody really likes cold outreach. But here response is, hey Ian, love this. When can we chat? And nobody loves cold outreach. And so we really have kind of taken up a notch, her feel-good factor of that message. And I'm sure you can know that when we reach out to her again, when we respond, she's going to be heightened in terms of chances of responding and taking the action that we desired because of that, because of those kind of endorphins that we triggered from this little moment of delight. Or like I said, we've got to make the images purposeful. And so, for example, reinforcing your call to action using other psychological tricks, like minimizing call to action. So, for example, oftentimes, when we're reaching out to people, we'll say, hey, let's have a coffee and a chat about growth or personalization or a topic that, that we want to kind of focus around. And that let's have a coffee and a chat. Obviously, it's kind of mimicking language we've used before when we were kind of more in a physical world, people would kind of meet up in local Starbucks. So it's kind of vernacular people are familiar with and verbal shorthand for what it really means. But also it gives us the opportunity to kind of reduce the ask. The thought your brain conjures up when you talk about a chat and a coffee is casual and short, and delightful, versus thought of online demo, an online Zoom demo or a webinar, or whatever it may be. It's a different. Whilst it might not be negative, it's certainly more formal and longer, and maybe a little bit heavier in terms of an action to kind of undertake or certainly agree to. And so, by minimizing the call to action and then tying that visually, so hey, let's have a chat and a coffee, and I'm there smiling with my coffee cup, with some personalization, with a GIF, with some animation, drawing the eye in, the humanized GIF. I like this response from Edgar, who received that exact message and that exact image. And his response was, I never reply to these emails. This is the first one that worked. Now, you can see I'm wearing a white T-shirt. I often think that I should have something like that emblazoned across my T-shirt as some sort of hyperized slogan, because I've kind of lost count of how many times I've received responses that kind of more or less word for word say this. I never reply to cold email. This is the first email that's ever touched me. You know, all those sort of things, basically saying your image worked. It triggered something inside me, and that gave me long enough to kind of read the rest of your copy, and now I'm taking action. And that's ultimately what we're looking to achieve here. And so, very simply, creating these images will show you kind of during the course of this presentation, you know, how simple it can be to do that and start to add them into your existing outreach tool. So very little needs to be changed from what you're presently doing to start getting, you know, significant uplifts. And, you know, it's not just about finding the right buyer and getting them engaged. Oftentimes in your outreach, you'll find somebody that isn't necessarily the right person. And so rather than them just being pissed off and deleting or marking you as spam, you know, or sending you a snarky message back saying, hey, you've got the wrong person, you start to get responses like this, where they say, oh, you know, I really liked your email, you know, the pattern interrupt, the moment of delight worked. And so that goodwill, you know, they will use that and kind of forward your message onto somebody else. So, you know, maybe the right person in their organization or a buddy who they think it might kind of be more suitable to. Like you see here, where we've reached out to Jonathan, who's actually the CEO of TFC Marketing, and actually probably should have been somebody else in his company. So rather than just, you know, any of those negative scenarios happening, he's actually kind of given us a word of mouth referral. And, you know, who better to get a word of mouth referral from than somebody in the organization, you know, who's holding a senior position. And so being able to create these moments, you know, of delight, you know, where people, you know, find it kind of cool or wow or different or something completely original. All of those things are just a path to further engagement. We've opened a door. They're talking to us. It might not be specifically great. Okay, I'm going to book the meeting right away, but they're having a dialogue with us, and that means that we can then start to be, you know, the kind of the good marketing salespeople that we know we are, and kind of digging in and finding the true in now that we've got their attention and their engagement. But we've looked at there a lot of images that are, let's say, humanized or personalized images. So humanized and personalized. And as we said, great for salespeople. But what I want to show you now, just a couple more examples beyond that. So not always do we want to reach out, and not always is the call to action going to be a human interaction. You know, sometimes we're dealing at scale and want people to download a paper, read a story, sign up for a free trial, you know, take some call to action doesn't involve necessarily immediate or with a specific person, you know, on the end of that. And so this is a great example. One of our clients here at G2. Now, what they do, now most people I speak to have heard of G2, but for those of you that haven't, the way I like to think about them is TripAdvisor for software companies. So TripAdvisor, obviously, you go there and you put in a keyword and you find all the best kind of locations to go. With G2, you go in there and you put a keyword being email software or, you know, personalization software or CRM, any sort of kind of software vertical, and it will show you all the best software vendors within that category. Now, what they do is they kind of rank all of the vendors per category, you know, based on reviews and feedback and all that sort of stuff. Again, similar to TripAdvisor. But what G2 do as part of their own growth is they reach out to lots of other vendors that aren't featured on their platform, or maybe that don't have a high profile. And what they do is they kind of use this kind of aspirational outreach message of, hey, if you work with G2, you could become a category leader in the future. And so these two examples here, you can see there's two different reports. These are reports that they actually do produce on a quarterly basis, you know, and a lot of people pay attention to these, you know, who is the category leader or the high performer or the up-and-coming leader in the category I'm interested in. And so they produce these reports. And so they'll be quite familiar to people, but even those that aren't with G2 and their specific reports, you know, visually you can kind of see what story is being told with these. But in this case, what they're doing is the prospect they're reaching out to, they're adding their business name and their logo to the report. And so they're saying, hey, aspirationally, you know, here's a great topic, you know, here's a great thing, you know, that you could be leading your category only if you worked with G2. And so, you know, that kind of personalization of that storytelling is very strong and very, very purposeful. And you can see the response increase they got from that. their reply rates, which was their kind of the call to action in their email, went from 15 to 48%. So it tripled the amount of people that responded from that outreach by creating that personalized image in that copy to tell that story in such a dynamic way, that really was very purposeful, and helped reinforce that story that they had. Like I said, we will be sharing this deck after this event. And in here, if anybody is interested in learning a little bit more about what G2 did, there's actually a video here with Jesse Rowe, the head of growth, going to really delve into their process of how they ended up with these, and as he talks about extending their product, right the way into email, and how it revolutionized how they think and how they do email outreach. So, like I say, I won't play that now, but I'll leave that there's an option. There's something maybe if you're interested in the G2 use case to kind of delve further into that. This is another one of our clients, Reply.io. So again, another SaaS provider. In this case, they're a multi-channel outreach platform. So they themselves already know a few things about what good outreach looks like, and so you could imagine already pretty well optimized. And what they wanted to do was kind of diagrammatically tell a story. So you see here we have this image, and it's showing the kind of the pleasure and the pain, the yin and the yang, the old way and the new way. So kind of really trying to tap into a pain point that people that are reaching out to would already have, which is one of having lots of different platforms for your outreach, maybe a scheduling system here and an email here, and all these different bits not really talking to each other, and creating a bit of a nightmare in terms of kind of management. And then what you've got on the right hand side is the thing that's triggering an interrupt, getting them to pay more attention because they're seeing their logo there in that image, and then they're thinking like, wow, okay, what's this? Paying more attention, okay, that sounds interesting, and then they're off taking the call to action. And in this case, being able to 21%, so a 10% uplift, almost a doubling of replies simply by adding this personalized image. Now, the interesting thing that Reply did was they didn't just focus on their core metric, which is reply rate, and as we just saw, that certainly increased. But also what they looked at over time was other metrics that were important for email outreach, such as the open rate and the delivery rate. And what they found was that as more people were replying and engaging in their emails, that increased their domain reputation. And that increase in domain reputation led to more people opening their emails and also them landing their emails in the inbox or the promotion tabs. And so you've probably heard of email warm-up solutions and services. Well, this is kind of like a pseudo email warm-up, because what we're doing is increasing naturally, organically, the reply rates or click-through rates, which again is giving us that improvement. And there are lots of other ways that we can visualize a call to action. It can be aspirational images that kind of hint to the story. Here's a case study by Encharge, and what they were doing is reaching out to customers that were falling out the bottom of their funnel and trying to ask some questions in terms of understanding better what their challenges or their kind of drivers were. And essentially, they were giving a three-choice email, and then that loaded them into another sequence based on which one they chose. And what they did was kind of did a full A/B test, but it was exactly the same copy. The only difference was they replaced the click links with personalized images. So whether it was more customers, reducing their acquisition costs, or improving engagement, and again having some images that kind of reference those in some sort of abstract sort of way with the personalization in there. But what that led to was a 14x click-through uplift. 14 times as many people clicked a personalized image as a link. So that was absolutely massive for them for that study. As you can imagine, you're receiving 14 times as more people in your funnel, 14 times quicker learning by simply doing that. So very, very uplifting in terms of the kind of engagement rates they saw there. But so that's kind of some examples of marketing, and this is something that we've seen a lot of clients jump into recently. Something that we've certainly been kind kind of promoting and kind of using ourselves and seeing some great engagement uplifts and results overall. And that is, maybe you're doing one-to-one demos, and so moving your one-to-one demos to events, doing some sort of events or webinars, being able to your existing user base, but also your registrants into your events can be a really amazing strategy. So, for example, if you have an event, you can see like a couple of examples here, whether it's Ecom World or AdWorld or even a Hyperize one, creating sort of personalized image that shows, that kind of resembles like an event ticket, tells the story of what your event is and what it's about. And then what you can do is use that to either invite people, your existing people in your database, to your event. So you can say, hey, Ian, here's your event ticket. We've already got it ready for you. Just click here to claim it. Or the alternative, which we also seen have some amazing results, is that when somebody registers for your event, you send them this personalized event ticket, say, hey, thanks very much for registering for this event. Really appreciate it. Here is your personalized event gift. And so that one creates a moment of delight, as we've mentioned, that people feel a bit special because they've got this personalized gift. And then, what we can do is then say, oh, would love it. Hey, thanks for registering. Would love it if you would share to your network, that you're attending our event. And so because we create that moment of delight by sending people this personalized gift, we found that on average, 10% of your event registrants will actually share your gift to their own network to say, hey, I'm attending this event and it's really cool, and I kind of can't wait to attend, or whatever it is that they kind of, the message they share alongside the image. And that social endorsement can be really powerful. On average, we see 6 additional registrants per share. So if you run the maths of that, so imagine you've got 100 people from your own kind of invitation registered for your event. 10% of those will share, statistically on average. So that's 10 people will share, and on average per share you're going to get 6 additional signups, which means that's 60 additional registrants for your event. So your 100 attendee event is now jumped up to 160 by using this strategy. And as you can see here in this pie chart, we're getting some good shares across the social networks. We kind of get some real value from in terms of the learnings of where the benefits are from using personalization in your events. Is we pulled some data customers using personalization in their events and after, over the last couple of weeks and months. In total, for our kind of data analysis, we had 37 events in the pool, which represented almost 35,000 registrants. So, a big number of people, certainly beyond statistical significance. And what we saw was the average number of registrants before using personalized gifts and images in their outreach was an average 743 people. So, not too bad, actually. There were obviously some events bigger than others, but, on average, 743. Now, the interesting thing was that virtually none of the registrants were sharing, telling their audience that they were attending the event. In fact, even that 1.5% was skewed by one of the event organizers who offered some quite significant bribes for shares, which kind of led them to a couple of percent shares. Most events had like a 0% share rate, so very, very minimal activity from a share perspective, and attendance, pretty typical as you'd expect for an event, in the kind of 30s, 40%. Attendance, if you were lucky. But when we look at the stats after using personalization, after using personalized images, one, we can see the number of people registered for the event shot up quite significantly. And we can see the reason for that is the amount of people sharing the event has gone up like 10% essentially. So it's going to go from 1.5 to 11. So significant uplift. And that's obviously what's driving more registrations. But what we can also see on the other side is that more people attending as well. So you get a double whammy, more people at the top of the funnel, more people registering, then more of those people turning up. And so it really is increasing this kind of audience, event audiences by 50% or more, by implementing this. So, really great way to use image personalization if you're using events. and using your branding. This is an example from Neil Patel, who uses our images, increasing his attendance by 22% simply by using this image. In this case, Neil not using a GIF, but I'm sure if we convince him with some of these stats, he will be changing to a GIF pretty soon, because there's even better results when we have that movement in there too. A couple of last examples, I promise, and then we'll jump into the practicalities of how you can start doing this for yourselves, getting started today. This is another example. I like this one because it's the polar opposite, really, of the humanized GIFs. In the Hubstaff, again, one of our clients, what they wanted to do was increase the amount of people signing up for their self-serve free trial. So Hubstaff is a SaaS platform, and what they do is provide management of remote workers for any businesses that have teams working remotely, which is most people these days. But when they first started with it was construction workers and those sort of businesses. And so what they do is target the HR manager in operations, and they're saying, hey, look at this platform, so simple, you can track all your remote workers, see what they're doing, all that sort of stuff. And so within a simple view, no more spreadsheets and paperwork, all that sort of thing. And so when they presented this dashboard, that helps tell all of that story. It shows, the app with the the tracking part, and the dashboard showing all activity. And so it helps reinforce, the ease of what their platform provides. But in this case, what we can see in this image, it's completely personalized to Tim Cook from Apple. So from the organizational logo in the dashboard, through to the profile listed there, even the app, the map in the app is personalized. There's over 12 personalizations in this image. And when they used that in their outreach, that led to over a tripling of click-throughs. So more than 3 times the amount of people took the action of clicking to say, okay, I want to start my free trial, when they saw a personalized image in their outreach. And in fact, the image we're looking at here, this was the winning image that they used. They actually tried 4 or 5 different images in their outreach, and this was the one that the combined, as it were, that told the best story, that had the best conversions. This image here actually was at 12.5% click-through rate, and even the worst personalized image was 10.5%. So even the worst performing personalized image was still 3 times better than the benchmark with no personalized image, and we're over 4 times better when we use the winning images, as we saw before. And what they did with Hubstaff, they didn't just stop with personalizing their outreach with the images in their email. What they also did was personalize their landing page too. So you can see this is an example of one of their landing pages, again personalized to Tim from Apple. So it's got personalization in the business name, in the header, in the call to action button, and obviously all of the headers, the subheaders, and images all personalized. And what that led to was a doubling of conversions on that landing page. And so what we saw was this compounding impact, where more people were clicking on the email, the call to action there, getting to the landing page, and then more people were converting on the landing page. And those 2 changes compounded to create a 7x uplift across the full funnel. So pretty amazing uplift. Pretty much means for them that for every 300 emails they send out, now they're getting 7 signups, whereas before they were only getting 1. So you can see what a big impact that would have. And obviously we're looking at some of our own customers and findings here, but this was a study that HubSpot did over a 6-month period, and over 300,000 landing pages. So very significant in its size. And what they found was a 202% uplift when personalization was used around the call to action. So pretty much mimicking some of the stats we've seen, like for example, as we saw just before there with Hubstaff, they got a 2x uplift on their landing page, which pretty much mimics the the ballpark that HubSpot found in their own survey. And that's hopefully giving you some ideas of the different sort of ways we could be personalizing images in our outreach, whether it's humanizing with your GIF for your sales, or whether it's finding some product images that reinforce your call to action or aspirationally help tell a story. In terms of how we create these images, so simple with Hyperize, with our graphical user interface. Simple drag and drop. You can upload any sort of image and you just add new personalized layers to that. With Hyperize, you can upload any sort of image format, whether it's a PNG, a GIF, and anything else that you may find, like a JPEG or whatever that you have in your arsenal. Once you've uploaded that image, you can add in different layers, such as text, and then add in placeholders, like you would have a placeholder in an email, like hi, first name. We're now just adding that kind of first name placeholder directly into the image. And of course, we can style that with color and all those sort of things. But beyond text, we can also add website placeholders. So if you want to show a screenshot of somebody's website in our image, then we can add a website placeholder. Or if we want to show their logo, again, that's great for mock-ups of reports, all that sort of thing, like we saw with the G2 example. Again, we can add in the logo element, and then we'll be dynamically pulling through that logo based on their business email or website, if that's provided. Also, if we are looking at more on, let's say, the LinkedIn side, or we've got professional email addresses, then being able to pull through profile images into our images directly can be, again, a kind of a strong kind of use case to trigger that pattern interrupt with a personalization in an image. And the great thing about Hyperize, as I touched on before, is we integrate with hundreds of different platforms and pretty much any website building solution. So it doesn't matter, just tripped over the tortoise. So it doesn't matter what you use already, you'll be able to copy the Hyperize image code and add that directly into your existing automation tool. So maybe what would be a good idea now is to jump over and into Hyperize and just quickly show you how simple it can be to create a personalized image. And what we'll do is we'll create one from scratch. So when you first come into Hyperize, I'm not in my account, let me go into my account, you'll have three core options really. We've got image personalization, we've got video personalization, and website personalization. Now I'm going to focus on the image personalization today because that's kind of, I guess, the lowest hanging fruit in terms of when you start to use Hyperize, is adding images into your outreach. Of course, once you've added the images, what we can then do is go on to personalizing the landing pages. So when people click the images, they go to a page on your website that's personalized, and then obviously we can start to add personalized videos in there as well. But the process is very simple and similar. And so if we focus on the images, that gives us a good kind of footholding. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, create a brand new image. That's going to give us the ability to do is choose from one of the templates we have. You can see here over 100 templates, 143 templates as it stands today. I'm always adding new ones into our platform. And some of these, can be more aspirational. Like, for example, we can see here, we've got this business success one, and we can simply select any sort of template, and that's going to give us the ability to just stop changing it and matching it ourselves. So here, for example, we see business name. We're here for you. Maybe we want to change text on there, but the image looks good, that sort of thing. And so we can filter these images. So if we're interested in, I'm putting on event, what sort of templates you have around events. I could choose an event tag, or I could even search using the search bar here. So we can see in this case, choosing event, we've filtered all of our options to event, and we've got 15 now. And we can see we've got some that look like event tickets, some that look like somebody actually giving some sort of talk. And again, obviously, all of these have got some elements of personalization. And so we can kind of go through, and kind of find something that's kind of useful, aspirational, like I say, kind of maybe we just say we want kind of aspirational images. And so we kind of got this sort of thing, like I say, or maybe we want to find that success image and use that one and maybe have some changes to it. And so once we've got an image, we can see the layers we have in there. So we've got this layer here, which again, we can kind of move around and change the font that we're using very, very simply, just with a couple of clicks. In this case, we've got a logo being shown as well. So when we preview that, when we put it all together, once we save that image, what we can see is that, in this case, we've got, for the email of tim@apple.com, we think Apple, we're here for you, and we've kind of got this Apple logo. Maybe what we want to do is add some more personalization. We could add in another layer here, and we're going to add in another image into our composite. So what I'm going to look for is actually a post-it note. There we go, post-it note. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of resize that a little bit so it's a bit bigger, and maybe just give it a bit like of a tilt like that. And then what we can do is put some more text on here. So again, it's just kind of really personalize it. Just going to grab, in this case, Tim's attention. So we can say, hi, say first name. Let's just change the text in there. So we can maybe change the color and change the font. So it maybe looks a bit more like it's written on there. And maybe the size a little bit like that. Oh, a bit too big. No, we'll just fit the box so it doesn't go over the box. And so now what we can see is when we preview this, in this case, we've got Apple here for your success, got the Apple logo. We've also got this post-it note, hi Tim. So we've got enough elements there to trigger the pattern interrupt. And now it would be just a case of, right, okay, how can I use this image? Where can I use it? I'm going to use it in my outreach campaign. So I simply go to the get image code option here, and I would choose the integration I want to use it with. So I simply choose add new. We've got all of these options, like I said before, hundreds of different options of different platforms. We can actually filter these by different purposes. So whether it's direct mail or email or CRM, or e-commerce, LinkedIn, etc., or we can scroll through, or if we know that we want to use MailChimp, for example, I can just filter the list and then choose that correct one. Once I've done that, once I've selected the integration, I simply copy the image template code, as you can see here. Obviously, this is for MailChimp. And all I do in MailChimp is go into a template in MailChimp, edit an existing one or create a new one, it doesn't matter. And then we're just going to add in a code block into MailChimp and just paste in the code that we've copied from Hyperize. And that code is simply, you don't need to change it, don't need to do anything. It will simply dynamically update on the fly whenever this email template is used. That image template that's sat inside it is just going to personalize dynamically on the fly. It's going to pull the data that you have within MailChimp and personalize that, inject that into the image, personalize it on the fly. And so set and forget, once you've added that code to the image, you never need to change that template again. It's just going to work seamlessly. And that process, is pretty much the same. This wizard here that we kind of got through is going to guide you through whatever you choose, whether it's LinkedIn, email, chatbot, whatever. It's going to guide you through the steps of how you get the image from Hyperize into that platform and personalize it dynamically. And for every single integration, there's an integration guide. So you really can't go wrong in terms of how to do that. And that really is the kind of the basics of using Hyperize. If you want to do a scale, and of course, always using one of these integration partners will enable you to do that. Sometimes you might also want to add a personalized image to a one-to-one email. There's kind of personal follow-ups, that sort of thing. And for those occasions, we've got a Chrome extension to cover you. So this Chrome extension here, you can see that it supports Gmail, Outlook, LinkedIn, and Facebook Messenger. So what that means is that when I go to any of those places, so for example, you can see now I'm in Gmail, I send an email to, let's just find somebody to send a message to, hi, Tim. I'm going to click this button here, which is the Hyperize button. And now you can see, I can see all of my personalized images that I've created. So if I want to send in this kind of GIF one with me at the whiteboard, I can also choose a link here. So this link is going to be where we're going to send it to. And again, this could be a personalized page. It could be your event page, YouTube link. It doesn't matter. If it's your own website, then obviously it means that you can personalize it as well. So all we're doing is putting it to make it clickable. And so once we've added that, we're going to see that appear now in the email. So now we've just created this one personally for Tim. Hi, Tim. Here's your event recording. And we've got obviously his logo, sticky leads being pulled through dynamically. And of course, we're also kind of making it clickable, and we're sending him to this page here, LinkedIn event virality. And again, you can see we're putting through personalization in the title, in the headers, in all of the personalized images, all being personalized, in this case, to Tim from Sticky Leads. So being able to dynamically personalize our landing pages, from that click, obviously we can see there. But also what we saw was using this Chrome extension to enable us to be able to personalize and add images into our individual outreach. So whether that's again LinkedIn or Facebook, Outlook, Gmail, we can do those all individually, as well as leveraging automation tools to kind of go through those channels as well. So hopefully that's given you some ideas of the capabilities of what Hyperize can do. And what I'd like to do now is just open up any Q&As, any questions that anybody has. You know, we can kind of jump into those and kind of get through them. Again, this deck that we provided here, it does have a link to the Chrome extensions for, to be able to kind of create them manually as well. Of course, when you sign up for a free trial of Hyperize, you will kind of get access to all of these from your onboarding and be given the relevant links to be invited to kind of download those. But hopefully that this has been a useful session. If you do have any questions, certainly now is the time to kind of pop those into the Q&A, and we can kind of start answering those and giving you some further information to kind of finish the session with. Whilst you're kind of thinking, formulating what those questions might be, just one thing I'd like to mention regarding the trial. Hyperize has 14-day free trial that gives you full access to the platform, to the whole solution that we provide. So the image personalization, the website personalization, and the video personalization. Now, as I said, that gives you 14 days, but you can kind of upgrade to any other plan anytime. And after the 14 days, you can switch between plans without any lock-ins. Obviously, you can see the pricing here based on different plans you had. So, Savannah, I see you've just popped in a question there. Have you ever implemented these on college campuses? So yeah, we've certainly seen the NUS's is kind of a facility we have over here, where it's kind of student facilities, talking promoting certain things, certainly from freshers, that sort of stuff, where they, again, ultimately, at the end of any sort of kind of reach out and communication, it's kind of human interaction, and it's about trying to grab people's attention. And probably students, considering how busy they are and distracted at the kind of these early days of attending uni, is kind of all the more reason to kind of need to grab their attention and kind of drive engagement. And so again, it's all about being purposeful. We see, maybe the dean waving as a humanized GIF might not work as well with students as it would with, a CEO reaching out to his employees. But, showing something, see this personalized or something like that, there's lots of great ways that, you can still make the imagery purposeful, and kind of still drive that engagement. So yeah, we've certainly seen universities and kind of students being used kind of from that sort of image personalization. Like I say, obviously with the free trial, what I would suggest is kind of have a trial, have a test, find a campaign that you're already doing, that you maybe already have a benchmark for a campaign you're about to do, where you have the capabilities in your outreach tool to do an A/B test, and then do some with images, some without, and that, I'm sure, will provide you with all the answers that you need in terms of the effectiveness within your industry and for your particular targets. So Tushar is asking a question, will this be helpful for individual SMEs who want to publish their articles in LinkedIn, as well as to increase response rates of one-to-one? No, so Hyperize is purely a one-to-one personalization tool. It has no impact on articles that you would share in your, obviously with the event promotion, we do see, we do ask kind of prospects to share, also registrants of your event to share their own personalized gift. So, hey, I'm attending this event, but they're sharing their personalized event ticket. What their network is seeing is still there, the person who shared it, their event ticket. So that's good from our perspective because it's social endorsement. But obviously what it's not doing is personalizing to each person that sees that. That is unfortunately not technically capable with the way kind of LinkedIn or Facebook, etc., work and their own personal data policies, etc. But I hope that answers your question. It does look like we've maybe run out of questions for today. I will just hold it open for another moment just to see if anything else comes along or any follow-up questions. But like I say, really the next steps would be. Sorry, I'm just fiddling with my trackpad has run out of batteries at the same time. So, like I said, the next steps really would be about getting in with the trial. You can go to hyperrise.com and just click the start free trial button, and you'll be in. No credit card needed, so there's no kind of commitment at all. But you'll also then get access to the support team, where you can book further support from ourselves on online calls as well as chat, and email. So lots of ways to kind of get you going and making sure that you get the most out of your trial and the most out of your outreach. So it does look like that was the last of our questions. So again, for those who made it to the end, I really appreciate your time today. If you do think of any of the questions after this event, again, please feel free to reach out. You obviously have my contact details, but also all the members of our team. I would be more than happy to help you as well. Until then, I wish you the very best, and you take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.